I hope all of you are having a great day in your art studio, and I hope the art is coming out well. It's been a long time since I've chatted with you here in the art studio. So many amazing things have happened in my life. I'm trying to think just how long it's been. But rather than do that, let me go back and recap some of the things that I've been doing. And this show is not about what I've been doing. We're actually going to get to talking about making art because, as usual, I have some definitive thoughts on making art. Anyway, for the last year, I've been producing a new magazine called Bad Magazine. Bad Magazine is sort of like Mad Magazine. It's an offshoot of that, so to speak, or a stepchild. Anyway, I loved the irreverence. I loved the cartoons in Mad Magazine as a kid, and I always wanted to be in Mad Magazine. So producing this magazine has been just a whole bunch of fun, allowed me to express a lot of creative things I never would have ordinarily been to express. So it's been terrific. Uh, I'm doing the self publishing thing through Amazon with it, as I usually do. That's sort of the most cost effective way to self publish a book. I think we could probably all agree to that at this moment. And if it's not the most cost effective, it's still one of the most cost effective and one of the best ways, to get your work out there without having to buy, 200 books and have them sitting on your shelf for the rest of your life trying to sell those books. I have books, I've bought, copies of my books, bulk orders, you'd say, and I still have those books sitting right here. I finally finished my Ed Wood graphic novel after 5 years of screwing around on that thing. And I'm so proud of my Ed Wood graphic novel, by the way. It's under my pseudonym name, Diana Wood. If you want to find it, it's on Amazon. But I myself personally had it printed deluxe from Comics Wellspring, and that printing, that particular book is just fantastic. But I've only sold one copy. I know. So I bought 25 copies, I think, and I've got 23 left to go. I gave one away as a gift, I think. Maybe two I gave away. Can't remember now. Anyway, for me, buying books and storing them is a dead end, but I love to have them printed really nice sometimes. And Amazon Amazon's printing is the cheapest printing that could possibly be. Think about Charlton Comics in the 1960s and 70s. Now you've got Amazon's printing. They're trying to do it in the least expensive way they possibly can, which I understand. So, if you ever want to think about newsprint comic books, I think Amazon is about as close as you might get. It's not super, it's high resolution to a point in the line screen, but I'd say the line screen is equivalent. I don't know. It's not a 180, maybe a 122. Of course, you're all saying, what the hell is a line screen? It's the density of the line and the dot on a page. And since printing is no longer done that way, it's all digital, unless you go to China, of course, and you do books over there. But anyway, either way, like a photography book, lithography kind of thing, like say Life magazine, that thing would have a line screen of like 380. The dot would be so fine, the photographs reproduced so exquisitely. Of course, we don't have that kind of reproduction anymore, but it was beautiful. Anyway, I digress all over the place. You can see how long I've been alive because I know about the printing from the 1960s. Woo, no one cares about that. Let's talk today about making art. Each and every one of us is making art. And I bet that we struggle with it some days. Maybe not. Maybe for art is like it is for me, where I love making art. And I've come to the point in my career where rather than it being a constant struggle, I can sit down and just sort of like if I was a piano player, just play. Just sit down and play the piano. So now I can just sit down and draw. And of course, I've been waiting for that moment, forever. And then when it finally sort of mysteriously arrived in my 40s, it's funny because I sold a lot of art when I was younger. I mean, a lot of art when I was, I think, less technically skilled. And now that I'm old and everything, I know I can't sell a thing. The internet has homogenized everything to the point that there's just so many people selling and doing and selling and doing that I think you get lost in the mix. Uh, 15 years ago, it was much easier to sell a book, even though I didn't know it was easy then. It was much easier than it is to sell now. Now, I release a book, it gets lost in the sea of books. Bad Magazine, for example, is not in any way a financial success. We've sold a few copies here and there. Issue number one outsells them all. Maybe because people like number ones, I don't know. But that book itself is graphically oriented to look just like a 1972 Mad magazine. And it does. It's in black and white, the way it's laid out, and so on. The other Bad magazines become more advanced. What I'm doing in those magazines, just to say it in a couple sentences, is I've been using the Mid-Journey artificial intelligence to help me create art for those books. So it allows me to create thousands and thousands of images in just a few days or weeks. And I can take those images, modify them, and make cartoon books out of them. And I've made several different kinds of books using the Mid-Journey art. But what I love about the Mid-Journey artificial intelligence art is that you can tilt it towards different styles. Make me a cover by Norman Rockwell of a comic book company or something. It'll approximate it pretty good. There's a lot of flaws in it. You have to go in and fix things in Photoshop, but for the most part, it works really well. What it's done for me is it allows me to speed up my production, so I could make 7 complete full color magazines in a year. And actually, I've done more than that. I did 13 published books, I think, in 2022. And right now, this year, I've got 4 books out, I think. Yeah, I think I got 4 out so far. Because publishing and making books is my passion. Anyway, the artificial intelligence allows me to make art, and so I can put thousands of images in a single book that would take me months or years, if to paint or draw. I can create them all in a few days, few weeks, and then create a book. Issue number 3 of Bad Magazine is especially ponderous. It's got over 4,000 images in it. Just imagine how long it would take you to draw 4,000 of anything. It might take a while, and that includes me. So rather than paint and draw 4,000 things, I have the artificial intelligence do it, and voila, I can create a full color cartoon book with full of my ideas and original thoughts, and the thing renders them out. It's not perfect, it's not an exact process, but I have really enjoyed working with art and artificial intelligence for over a year now. And as the artificial intelligence itself evolves, uh, it's really fascinating tool to work with. I consider it a tool just like Photoshop. Now back to creating art, because I've circled back again. I used to think that copying other people, and especially it has such a bad connotation among artists, oh, you're copying so-and-so, you're copying. I've now come to the conclusion that copying is exactly what you want to do. You want to take someone who you think is great, and I think you should redraw, repaint, whatever it takes to recreate that art. I think you should recreate it. And I think you should do it over and over again till whatever lessons you need to internalize from that artist are internalized. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, what are you talking? You're talking about tracing? What are you talking about? No, I'm not talking about tracing. I'm talking about redrawing. I'm talking about looking at someone else's painting or artwork and then painting it or drawing it again to try to create an exact replica of that thing. Now, we've talked about this before in the art studio, and I remember when I first got this lesson. I was in art school, and the teacher says, okay, we're going to recreate the paintings of the masters. And I'm thinking, man, this is a terrible, terrible idea. And not till now, all the way, sort of at the end of my art career, do I understand the absolute value in that. I think it's kind of like this. You learn the basics, let's say, of construction, building a house, building a building. And then after you know how to do it right, and you can do it so the house is safe and lasts, many years, doesn't fall over, you now have all the basics down. You have a way to do it. And let's say you worked with a certain kind of architecture firm and they made 10-story buildings. So rather than, one level, you're doing 10 stories all the time. So you get used to doing high rises. And so that becomes your specialty. You're familiar with it, you're good at it. And then as you advance, because you know all the rules and the basics, you can create more and more exotic and different and more imaginative 10-story buildings. And I think that's what happens in art. I think if you sit down, I'm not joking, and you like redraw a Jack Kirby comic book, and you just not redraw it, you really try to redraw it. I know that it sounds like I'm saying the same thing twice, but there's a way to really approach something where you're trying to recreate it. And it's hard and it's difficult and it takes time. And you have to match the pen strokes and the lines and the layout and all this stuff. But the thing is, after you did this, however long it took you, you would have internalized so many lessons that you wouldn't even know it. It is true, it subconsciously educates your mind. So even though everybody in my art class back when I was 18, who all had to recreate master paintings, and let me tell you, they were atrocious, atrocious. No one really knew how to paint. We weren't trained. I'm not sure we ever were by that teacher. But the idea of it is sound. Now, I don't know if you learn a lot by struggling and not knowing what you're doing and just throwing paint on a canvas. I think that having a lot more structure and a lot more uh, education on painting before I'd begun to try to do such a thing would have been so helpful as opposed to just floundering around. It's like getting in a car. Go ahead and drive this car. If you don't know how to drive, it's a big pain in the ass. It really is. It's hard to drive a car if you don't know how to drive one. But if you do know how to drive one, you can get in almost any car and drive one. It's not a big deal. So this teacher didn't give us any lessons on driving. He just said, go ahead and drive. So our paintings were terrible. They really, really were bad. But over time in my life, I have recreated works of art, specifically probably because I love them. I love a piece of art, so that I'm going to recreate my version of it. And you learn so much doing that. Now, why am I telling you to go copy other people? Like go find, some Wally Wood EC pages and try to recreate them fully. Why would you ever want to do that? Because of what I just said. You're going to internalize the lessons from this artist, whether you know it or not, by copying their work. And then that will contribute and change and benefit your work. I'm sure, and I know, I have talked about this exact same principle in the past. And I'm not trying to hammer it home, so to speak, even though that seems to be what I'm doing. What I'm trying to do is suggest to you something so valuable that it remains mysterious. In other words, if I said you need to practice something so you get better at it, you go, oh, practice. Sure, I'm willing to practice, and then you get better at it. So, but the idea of artists practicing has never really been a thing, like artists don't think much about practice, warm up sketches, practice sketches, months and months of practice drawings. Artists don't really approach art that way. They don't think about it that way, the way an athlete would. Like, I'm going to train for 5 years and I'm going to run a marathon. Most artists want to run the marathon tomorrow. They don't want to train for 5 years to run that marathon or draw that comic book. I get it. And that's why it's important to draw all the time. Whether you're good, whether you're bad, whether you're great, it doesn't matter. You're going to get better. Draw all the time. And just don't draw in this way. This is one of my biggest pet peeves. People memorize a series of what I call pictograms, whether it's a face, a body, a cartoon, the way you might draw Wolverine, whatever it might be. They memorize this particular pictographic pattern, and that's the way they draw forever. They never add a new line, a new angle, nothing into their art. It's just basically these pictographs they've memorized, which you and I would call drawings. They've memorized this certain style of a drawing, a picture, an object, and then they draw that over and over again. So for example, my daughter draws the same cat since she's 10 years old, draws a picture of this cat, and draws the same cat at 15, same draws the same cat at 20. It's just she's memorized a pictograph of how to draw this cat. So when you draw, what you don't want to do is you don't want to draw from memorized pictographs. This is how most people sort of begin, I guess. I'm not really sure if the word begin is the way I'd use it, but a lot of people come to their first level in art where it's just a memorization of pictographs in some respect. Anyway, I see a lot of people do this, and that is not the way to draw. The way to draw is with your hands, out of your mind, out of your imagination. And like I said seconds ago, if you want to copy somebody who's great and learn their techniques and their styles, you should, because you will learn them. And so just sitting down and randomly drawing, the same bad anatomy that you already draw, you need to go take that next step. You need to draw better anatomy, from a photograph or live art or whatever. In other words, you just can't memorize your pictograph of what you think the human body looks like. You have to keep trying to learn and draw from photos from life what the human body really looks like. Otherwise, your art will just be locked into that specific set of pictograms forever. And some people, let's say like Garfield, the comic book, or the comic strip. Garfield is a great example of a pictogram book. Once he's drawn the basic 25 panels of Garfield, uh, you basically have the same drawings for the next 20 years. There really is very little difference. Occasionally they introduce a woman, maybe Garfield is flipping upside down as a cat, a little more activity in the comic, but basically it's a series of pictographs. It's the same art forever and ever and ever. Just like Charlie Brown, Peanuts, it's pictographs. Okay, now this is really, it sounds like I'm putting those people down, but I'm not, because what happens to the great ones like Charlie Brown and so on is they get to a point where they can create their own pictographs, which they did, and then just use them over and over again as the style sheets for their work, which they do. So, in fact, simplistic work that is boiled down to pictographs, such as a daily comic strip, is what you want to do. You want it to be a simplified down version so you can execute it quicker, create it quicker, and so on and so forth. It would be a mistake to have Michelangelo, for example, creating a 4-panel daily cartoon strip. He might be needling it too much. Come back a year later, hey, I'm on panel 2. Of course, that's not how it works. You need someone who can really go. Anyway, so we're going to circle back around to where I was. I think it's super valuable for you to copy other people's styles, especially those people you love and admire. I mean, really copy it. And then I think in the copying, you will internalize what was to be learned from that. You won't get it all, of course. And as you progress as an artist, you will actually learn more things. Like if you see you did it when you were 20, you redrew a comic book when you were 20 years old, and then you went back and redrew that same comic book after you've been drawing for 25 years. Your next redraw on that same book would be pretty dramatically different and probably much more accurately depicting the actual product. How many of us have copied a drawing, but it didn't really come out looking like that original? I get it. I truly do. By the way, people say, why aren't you showing me pretty pictures on the videos and so forth and so on? I've been questioning that. This is an audio show. The Art Studio is an audio show. I expect you to be listening to this while doing something else. I'm not presenting a series of pictures for you to look at in the videos. So again, the Art Studio is an audio show. You're supposed to enjoy it or listen to it while you're doing something else or just relaxing. But anyway, so that's what I want you to do. I want you to go find someone's work who is great. Let's say you're a comic book artist and you want to make great comic books. Well, go find the person you admire and go redraw or repencil or lay it out. Even if you just did the blocking for the whole book, where the word balloons went, where the heads were, where the bodies were, the juxtaposition of different things, you would learn so much. I'm completely serious. Pick up like an issue of Spider-Man, number 52. Okay, drawn by John T. Johnny Romita, who has passed away. Sadly, Johnny Romita Sr. has passed away. But if you redrew that book a couple times, you would be a much better artist. And especially if you tried to match his line weight, the way he inked it, the way the inks were done, the setup of the balloons, everything's done correctly. So if your comic book work ended up looking even a little bit like Spider-Man drawn by Johnny Romita, you would be just leagues ahead or better than you are now. Okay. There's just good stuff to be learned, not stuff that would destroy your art in any way. And I know people are loath to this whole concept of copying. Like, why would I ever want to copy that? Well, like I said, in the copying, you learn to execute in ways and think in different ways and approach art in different ways. And that's what you want. You want a different way. Now, when I say different, all I'm really saying is we're going to modify whatever style you have to make it better. Now, I'm not even going to use the word more accurate. Like sometimes as you progress as an artist, your work becomes more abstract, perhaps, and that's not a bad thing. Your art can go many different directions. It doesn't have to be, photographically realistic in order to be good. It can be Don Martin Mad Magazine type art. It can be just cartoons. It can be whatever it is. But your art will be informed and you will draw better because of copying other people's work that you love. It just is a fact. Now, I know none of you are going to do it because you're all busy and you're going to work 70 hours a week and you're drawing in your free time and so on and so forth. But I want to leave this here. I want to leave this piece of information, this little bit of wisdom for you so that someday you're going to think to yourself, how do I get my art to the next level? Do I go to art school? Do I hire a teacher? Do I go buy more tools? Do I need a better computer? What is it that I need to bring my art to the next level? And what I'm saying to you is you need to copy someone else who is great. And you need to reproduce that work as accurately as you can, down to the exact glint in the eyeball in the painting. You need to try to reproduce it perfectly. And in that execution, in that attempt, in that disciplined practice, you will grow as an artist. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. And when you go back to create your own work, when it's time to create something from scratch out of your mind, after you've redrawn a couple Spider-Man books, you'll have a different repertoire of pictograms in your brain. And you'll be able to draw different things and think a different way once you have internalized other lessons. All right, so that's why I came to the art studio today to talk to you about that. Because one of the biggest things I've been able to do is to improve as an artist. A lot of people don't improve. They get to a certain point, and that's pretty much how they draw for the rest of their life. And that's perfectly normal, and as it usually is, by the way. You have to be quite obsessed to keep pushing and pushing and pushing to try to get even the smallest change to add up to the bigger change. And so, as a person who's been able to improve, to understand now how to improve myself, I want to pass it on to you. One more thing about using artificial intelligence in art. I'm not going to get into the debate of all the different things about it. What I want to talk about is what you could use it for as a tool. Let's say you were going to lay out a story about a spaceship crashing into a waterfall in a jungle. Well, you could type into the artificial intelligence, spaceship crashing into waterfall and jungle. And this thing would give you many different views and ideas, what you and I would call storyboard ideas for that exact same thing. So you would get let's say you had 100 different views and angles of this spaceship crashing. Well, the artificial intelligence can generate all that in about 10 minutes. So now you've got a couple hundred storyboard images of a spaceship crashing from above, from below, some with big fire bursts, some with not, some with more waterfall, some with less. And from looking at those images, you can get a very good idea on what image you might want to eventually draw completely. And that's one of the hardest things sometimes. You sit down as an artist and you need, spaceship crashing into a waterfall. How will I draw that? Should I draw it from above, below? There's like a million choices, many ways to approach it. And so the mid journey or any artificial intelligence serves up, a couple dozen ideas in a second, and you can look at them and go, oh, well, that's an interesting approach, from above with the sun glinting off the ship or whoever it might be. So I've learned a lot from using the mid journey artificial intelligence to create art. The thing has a doctorate in art. Every painting, every black and white image it makes is nearly perfect in the way it is structured, set up, balanced, rule of thirds, golden ratio. It's all in there. It's all built into this artificial intelligence. So when you ask it to make a picture of a spaceship crashing into a waterfall, it comes back with some really great representations. And then you can take those ideas and you can then draw your panel of the spaceship crashing into the waterfall. And you can use the color balance that the Mid Journey artificial intelligence presented. You can use the black and white balance. You can use the way it's stacked blacks. You can use the angles, everything. It's just a wonderful, wonderful way to create ideas so that you can then apply those to your stories. You know, Once I'm in the story, I'm a couple pages in. I'm not saying I get stale because I'm more interested in my style. I really have a defined style I'm shooting for when I draw books, and it's very calculated. But by looking at something like this, like give me a girl inside let's say a mansion. She's just walking around through a mansion. It'll give you a bunch of images of a woman walking through a mansion, and this gives you all these different ideas of how you might want to light it, set it up, how she might look in front of a window, or all these things the artificial intelligence serves up in minutes that gives you all these incredible ideas and techniques that you can then take with you and apply to your art. So I think it's a super valuable tool, artificial intelligence, obviously here to stay. They're integrating it into Photoshop and other things. And it's just a great tool. It's evolving fast. Where artificial intelligence and art will be a year from now compared to where it is today is staggering. It's mind-boggling. Anyway, I think it has a great place in your art studio. I think artificial intelligence could be a great way, like I said, to generate ideas, color schemes, themes, all kinds of things, logos. The artificial intelligence has almost no limit. Let's say, one more example. Let's say you were a stage designer and you were going to make a play and you said, okay, give me the stage design for a play with a budget of $1,000 and I want it to be done in muted colors or perhaps red, white, and blue, whatever. You could tell it anything. And I'm not joking, that thing will come back with stage designs that you could use for your actual stage production. The use for the artificial intelligence is staggering. You could tell it, make me the costumes for the play that we just designed the stage for. Give me, retro 1976, revolutionary costumes. And the thing will make you these intricate, beautiful, gorgeous costumes, hundreds, thousands designs if you want. So now you have all these ideas for costuming. Now you have the costuming for the show, you have the set design. It's just incredible what the artificial intelligence can do as far as art. So for you out there who are making art, don't be afraid of the artificial intelligence. Use it as a tool to help you get ideas, layouts, color schemes, the stacking of black and white and color correctly inside a single image and so forth. You could take the image, the computer presents to you, redraw it, recreate it, repaint it any way you want. And it's a great base to build upon. Because like I said, once you're, so many pages into a book, you're like, well, how should I draw this car being chased by another car down the street? Should it be an aerial view? Should it be a side view? What are my really most exciting ideas? And the Mid Journey software gives me lots of exciting ideas on car chases. I type in car chase, flames, crazy, and it gives me all these angles and shots and views of a car being chased by another car that I would never think of myself. And so it really lends itself to making great comics and great stories. Anyway, I hope that helps everybody. I just wanted to stop in here to the art studio and chat with you again. It's July 2023. look how far we have come. It's just amazing. I still follow some of my, I guess, listeners from the art studio, or they still follow me, I guess another way to put it. And I've seen some of you progress. I see some of you drawing and making great projects and really going for it. I'm going to apologize to you for the universe. The universe does not reward you correctly for making your art. Some people get paid, but very few of us get paid and really get a financial reward from the art and the books and the things we create, but we still have a wonderful time creating them. And I think that's important to focus on that because that's it's no small feat to create something. And even though you may not sell a million units or 10 units or even anybody notices you, it doesn't take away anything from the achievement you did. It's kind of like you're driving down the road at night and you see a kitten in the highway. You get out of your car and you pick up that kitten and you either put him in your car and you take him with you for safety, or you take him off the highway and put him in the woods and go, okay, kitten, now you're in the woods, you're off the highway. No one sees you do that. You drive away, you've saved the kitten from being run down on the highway, and off you go. It's those little things that you do all by yourself that no one else knows about that adds up really to who you are. And so, again, if you're drawing and nobody's noticing you and you're creating and the universe is not noticing you, it's okay. It doesn't take anything from away from what you do, what you did, the achievement you created. It doesn't take anything away. In other words, if nobody knows you saved that kitten, you still saved the kitten. It still happened, even though nobody knows about it. So don't get freaked out that you're not world famous or you're not making a ton of money from your art. Try to enjoy the experience of making the art, realize how unique and cool that is, and try to enjoy that part of it if you can. We will get back someday to talking about how we live with not making money as artists and still being an artist, which is a trick unto itself. But beyond all that, I want all of you to have a fantastic day in your art studio. I want you to keep creating art because remember, your time is not unlimited. It seems as we pass through each day that we have unlimited time to create, that it will never end, that tomorrow is always here, available to us. But you know, the darndest thing is, it's not. It really isn't. Life is a river that we float down, and we think we can go back upstream anytime and visit that place, but we can't because that place is already gone behind us. So you really only have right now. That's all you really have is today. And so your goal, whether you make art or not, is to make every day better for yourself. I don't mean that in a selfish way. I mean that in a good way. Maybe helping other people makes your life better, whatever it takes. So don't lament about the past. Don't worry about the future. Just handle today, enjoy today, and enjoy making your art. It's important to enjoy it. It's like playing music. Not everybody who plays the guitar becomes rich and famous, but it doesn't take away from the enjoyment of being a musician. And I want you to remember this. I want to encourage you to enjoy being an artist. Yes, it can be frustrating, but it can also be one of the greatest things that ever happens in your life. All right, everybody, this is Dan Burke from the Art Studio signing off. I will see you again.